The greatest thing that I have been given is the honor to be the first board member of ADDF and then to be the first board president. There's nothing that I would ever do that would surpass that. Thank you, Leonard.
14 years ago, Nancy Corzine and Leonard Lauder created the Connoisseur's Dinner to be the ADDF's signature event.
We would have a lovely dinner, no dancing, no wild, long speeches, and something so that people could enjoy the people that they invited.
We didn't want to have an event that was loud with music. We wanted to have an event that was elegant and exclusive.
Sotheby's made the event. To be able to go into that gallery and see all those beautiful pieces of art that possibly will never be seen again. Many of them had never been seen before, only in books.
We get to dress up. It's a fantastic time of year ahead of the auctions.
I'm always so impressed by how everybody attending is so interested in the expertise that they have in the works that we're offering.
The Connoisseur's Dinner is an extraordinary event, and I look forward to it every single year. It's about beauty, it's about culture, it's about bringing some extraordinary people together. It's done in Lauder style, where every detail is done to perfection.
Leonard would pick the wines, which of course were superb, and I thought to have it in spring and have that bleak winter gone and open up to a spring fantasy. We have to have beautiful silver, beautiful china, and exquisite flowers.
This event is unique in that every single moment is designed to what I will call tickle your senses. In the beginning years, the idea was to bring in as many cherry blossom as this space could hold, and that we did. And then that moment really then evolved where we created hanging gardens that were suspended from the ceiling.
And all these things together made it exquisite. It made them want to come to see what was going to happen next year.
There's just an incredible buzz, an incredible vibe that you don't find at other galas and charity events.
The Connoisseur's Dinner is also an annual celebration of just how far we've come with the science of Alzheimer's. You can go back 5 or 6 years ago, and there was talk of hope of a blood test for Alzheimer's. We have one now. You can go back 2 years ago and say, hey, are there any new treatments? And now we're hearing about these phase 2 treatments ADDF has been funding for the last several years, are breaking through, are reporting out that we actually have tangible hope right now. And you realize coming out of the evening, it's really a celebration of the Lauder families, and particularly Leonard and Ronald, two great passions that they have, the collection of art, as well as curing Alzheimer's.
Tonight, we're proud to present a nod to our past, as well as an exciting glimpse of our future.
It's a pleasure to welcome you all virtually this evening. It's such a pleasure to be partnering once again with ADDF here at Sotheby's and help contribute towards this critical and vital work.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 14th Annual Connoisseur's Dinner. I'm Randall Sandler, Co-Vice Chair and Secretary of the Board of Governors of the ADDF. In a few moments, you will hear from our esteemed co-founders, Leonard and Ronald Lauder, in a conversation with 9-time Emmy Award-winning journalist and ADDF board member, Paula Zahn. The ADDF's long-standing partnership with Sotheby's is a signature element of the Connoisseur's Dinner. And tonight, since we can't yet do this in person, we're privileged to enjoy an exclusive, behind-the-scenes tour of the highlights from the upcoming Spring Sotheby auctions, led by senior specialist Michael McCauley. We will also hear a one-of-a-kind performance from opera icon and Alzheimer's advocate Andrea Bocelli. Last, but certainly not least, we will present the 11th Annual Chairman's Award to Dagmar Dolby and David Dolby for their exceptional leadership and dedication to groundbreaking Alzheimer's research. Let's also raise a glass to our co-founders and co-chairmen, Leonard and Ronald Lauder, whose visionary leadership guides our path forward. 23 years ago, Leonard and Ronald made a pact to conquer Alzheimer's disease. Their approach, funding the most promising research into new therapies through venture philanthropy, allowing them to make investments rather than grants, and reinvesting all returns into the science. And to help the cause, the Lauders generously committed to covering all overhead expenses. 100% of all donations would go directly to the science. And so, with little more than a desk, a chair, their pact, and an outstanding first hire, the Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation was up and running.
Aging is the leading risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. We decided to focus our scientific strategy on translating our knowledge of the biology of aging into the development of effective therapies. Years ago, when Big Pharma started to invest billions of dollars in amyloid-based approaches, the ADDF decided to focus entirely on drugs with novel targets. Most of these projects weren't far enough along to attract financial support from the pharmaceutical industry, federal funders, or other major partners. While these were riskier investments, the upside could bring hope to millions of patients and their families. The ADDF stepped in to bridge a critical gap in funding where good ideas previously died.
This strategy enabled the ADDF to fund and bring new diagnostic tools to market. The Amyvid PET scan revolutionized the entire Alzheimer's drug discovery field. We could now conduct rigorous clinical trials that confirm whether patients have Alzheimer's and provide feedback on the effectiveness of therapies. Another breakthrough happened just last year when the first blood test for Alzheimer's, also funded by the ADDF, came to market. We now have a diverse pipeline of Alzheimer's therapies, and today, over half the drugs in the pipeline are exploring novel targets. Nearly 5 years ago, the ADDF pivoted its scientific focus from preclinical to clinical research. As government and pharma began funding more of the preclinical science, the ADDF saw another gap to bridge, the need to fund phase 2 clinical trials. These are also known as proof of concept trials and are crucial in validating whether the science holds enough promise for a larger trial.
Today, the ADDF has built one of the largest clinical trial portfolios in the world, 35 active clinical trials. And many of the concepts we supported in early stage research are now phase 2 trials. Half of these trials focus on slowing the progression of mild cognitive impairment and preventing dementia. In the next year alone, 6 of our promising phase 2 clinical trials are anticipating sharing results. We are starting to see combination therapies gain traction as effective and increasingly precise approaches to treat Alzheimer's. And with the recent launch of the Diagnostics Accelerator, we are transforming the biomarker landscape. We've witnessed incredible progress in the last few years. The Lauders Pact looks more prophetic every day. And with our momentum and your support, we're confident that we're on the way to conquering Alzheimer's disease.
And now I'm delighted to turn it over to a mainstay of the Connoisseur's Dinner, our 2013 honoree, the one and only Paula Zahn.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Paula Zahn, and I'm honored to be with you virtually for the Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation's 14th annual Connoisseur's Dinner. Recently, I sat down with my dear friends, Leonard and Ronald, to discuss what lies ahead for the ADDF and Alzheimer's research. Ronald and Leonard, it is great to see you. Congratulations on yet another successful Connoisseur's Dinner.
Well, thank you, Paula. We've made progress every year, every day. It's not going to happen overnight, but we are en route. I promise you that.
Ronald, do you share your big brother's optimism here?
I share my brother's optimism, but the real aspect is prevention, because we now have, using biomarkers, can tell somebody, perhaps even at the age of 30 or 40, are they ready to get Alzheimer's someday? And we will then have drugs that will stop it before it starts.
I'm thinking about all of our friends who are joining us tonight, and their families, like ours, have been deeply impacted by Alzheimer's. And I'm wondering how that inspired you, Leonard, to create the ADDF with Ronald.
If you see it in your family, you say, what about me? What about my daughter. Ronald has daughters, I have granddaughters, and those add up to having a strong reason, no Alzheimer's.
I'm in my 70s. Leonard's a little older.
Thank
And many of my friends in their 60s and 70s are afraid they're getting Alzheimer's because they forget names, they forget faces, they forget telephone numbers. There's been an enormous amount of things, of drugs now, that have the effect, that were used for other things like diabetes and things like that, that do have an effect to slow down or stop the growth of Alzheimer's. This is something that Leonard and I are extraordinarily interested in. We're still looking for a cure, but at the same time, prevention is a major effort that I think will achieve the most results.
And if you can keep people who have MCI active, engaged, working their brains and working their bodies and walking and exercising, you can postpone the onset of full-blown Alzheimer's by many, many years, maybe permanently. So our hope is that we can diagnose it very early, get onto those things that we do know slows it down, and we can be assured of a longer, healthier life.
By the way, I hate exercise. However, because of what we know, what Leonard just said, I'm exercising almost 5 days a week now. And I must tell you, first of all, I lost weight, but more important than that, I think my mind has come on clear. In all the different research we've done, we've come across interesting things like exercise, like sleep, like food, that have been byproducts of some of the things we've done.
What's remarkable, I think, about ADDF, and it's gotten a lot of recognition for this, is its deftness and being able to pivot when certain avenues of investigations become less promising. I think you both would agree that the foundation has been very fleet-footed, hasn't it? And it's taken advantage of some cutting-edge information.
We have jumped onto things very, very fast. We have a tiny board. Decisions are taken very quickly and done in the right way. And as you probably know, the Lauder family, which was Ronald and myself and other family members, are the sole supporters of the overhead of ADDF. We spend money only on drug discovery and research. That will get us there faster and swifter and surer. Now, I can give you my pledge. We are staying around until we have solved this problem.
And also to all the people watching this and join our Connoisseur dinner, thank you for believing in us. Thank you for investing into what we're doing, because we couldn't do it without you.
So drink some red wine, and we toast you with our red wine. And let's toast to the end of Alzheimer's. Thanks to you, Paula.
Thank you.
I'll drink to that. And again, with tremendous gratitude for everything you two and the rest of your family have done to combat Alzheimer's.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also would like to give a shout out to my dear and amazing friend, Paula Zahn. Thank you, Paula, for all you do for this amazing organization. You are the North Star for all of us. Thank you and congratulations.
The ADDF and Sotheby's have had an extraordinary partnership, and over the years, we've been privileged to host our guests in their elegant space. Join us for a behind-the-scenes look at the magnificent art featured in tonight's event, which is part of the upcoming auctions at Sotheby's.
Hello, good evening, and a very warm welcome to you here from Sotheby's in New York. My name is Michael McCauley, and I'm a senior specialist here, and it's a great thrill to be able to join you here for this evening's Connoisseur's dinner. Here at Sotheby's this week, we have spectacular exhibitions of our Impressionist, modern and contemporary auctions that are taking place on Wednesday and Thursday this week. These works really span an incredible story of modern and contemporary art, and it's my great privilege to be able to present a few of the highlights to you this evening. We're going to start by looking at one of the most spectacular works that we've seen come to the market in recent years. Claude Monet's Le Bassin aux Nymphéas from 1917 to 1919. This is one of the largest water lilies that Monet has painted that has appeared at the market in recent years. Painted exactly at the same time as the very famous canvases in the Orangerie Museum, and really encapsulating those famous kind of migration from figuration to abstraction from the garden in Giverny towards the end of his life. It's an incredibly beautiful work, as you can see. This incredibly lively and vivacious brushstroke, beautiful color and form. If you follow me through into the next gallery, I'd like to show you another highlight that is really something we're so lucky and privileged to be working with and to be able to offer for sale. This is Paul Cézanne's 1888 to 1890 study for still life of pears and apples here. Absolutely exquisite. Cézanne, of course, known as the father of modernism, and here you can see why. It's almost as if the painting is lit from within, and he's applied the same focus and attention to every square inch of this painting, not just these incredibly rendered fruits on the plate and on the table here, but also the wall behind the table. You can see every single brushstroke beautifully configured, beautifully structured. This is an absolutely exquisite work and something so fresh and extraordinary for us. A real honor and a real privilege for us to be able to offer it here for sale. You can see how this in many ways prefigured the arrival of Cubism and everything that followed in the 20th century. It all really starts here. We're going to go downstairs now to the galleries to look at some post-war and modern and contemporary art masterpieces. So why don't you follow me through this virtual tour at Sotheby's downstairs. We begin here in this gallery with the extraordinary collection of Mrs. John L. Marion. This displays an extraordinary array of abstract expressionist, color field, and pop art masterpieces that tell a very singular story of American art history in the second half of the last century. Foremost at the beginning here is Clifford Still's PH 125 from 1948, which is an absolutely exquisite rendition of his version of abstract expressionism, forged before really any of his contemporaries, Rothko, Pollock, Barnett Newman, Franz Klein. As we move down from Still to Kenneth Nolan to Franz Klein, we arrive here at the exquisite Ocean Park by Richard Diebenkorn. Again, this beautiful symphony of color on extraordinarily large scale. Some of the most impressive parts of Mrs. Marion's collection was the personal intention behind the works, the way that they evoke and reflect the Texan landscape that she grew up in and loved so much. It's also extraordinary to see the convergence of abstract expressionism on the one hand and pop art on the other. Here we have, from 1977, a painting by Roy Lichtenstein, Girl with Beach Ball 2, which is really paradigmatic of Lichtenstein's best work and a real return to form after he'd spent about 10 years not working from the human figure. The classic American blonde nude here rendered in surrealistic style. And of course, even more prototypical of the pop art movement, Andy Warhol's totemic 1963 Elvis 2 times. Here, this absolute definition of an icon with Andy Warhol as the gunslinger from Texas, shooting us twice in this fantastic display of reproduced imagery. If you follow me through into the other galleries, I'd like to show you some other highlights that are coming up in this incredible contemporary art exhibition. Here I'm standing next to Jean-Michel Basquiat's 1982 masterpiece, Versus Medici. This is really an exceptional example of what's most sought after in Basquiat's output. It's difficult to really imagine that the artist was 21 or 22 years old when he was making these extraordinary paintings, fusing together so many aspects of art history in this very singular, distinctive iconography and aesthetic that, of course, was entirely his own. His life was cut short so tragically when he was only 28 years old. His output is so limited. But here, he's really giving us a lesson in art history and referencing the Florentine Renaissance through this reference to the Medici family, of course. I think in some ways he's pitting himself and the memory of all of his art history into this kind of Western canon tradition. It's an extraordinarily powerful and impactful painting. You can see, standing next to it, the sheer scale and power of the work. It's a remarkable privilege to be able to offer it for auction, and we're really looking forward to some heated bidding on Wednesday evening. I'd like to show you through one more gallery, if you follow me this way. Here I'm lucky enough to show you Cy Twombly's Untitled from 1970, one of the best blackboard paintings that he ever made, famously arriving at this style in 1967 and working almost exclusively on this dark grey background, incising lines and rows of repetitive circular white imagery. This is a beautiful lyrical abstract poetry in many ways, and is definitive of the artist's contribution to his version of abstraction in the later 20th century. It joins in this room alone works by Mark Rothko and Joan Mitchell, Robert Ryman, and it really complements the whole season of masterpieces that we have. Again, going from Cézanne and Monet through Modigliani, Picasso, Twombly, Clifford Still, Richard Diebenkorn, extraordinary works on show here at Sotheby's. So thank you very much indeed for joining me for this brief tour. I hope if you can make it up here to York Avenue to have a look in person, and I wish you every wonderful success for this evening's program. Thank you very much.
Now it's my great honor and privilege to introduce opera legend and Alzheimer's advocate, Andrea Bocelli. The grandfather of Andrea's wife, Veronica, lost a long battle to Alzheimer's, and Andrea is so graciously sharing this special performance in tribute to him and all those remember as we fight this devastating disease.
We really wish we would be able to be with you, and in a certain sense, we will be with music. Many of you knows firsthand how difficult it is to fight and to live with somebody who's sick about Alzheimer's. I personally had a grandfather who was in the house for 12 years, so I know how demanding it is to really be both on the side of the patient and the caregiver. With your continued dedication and support, I'm sure this amazing foundation will find new therapy that will help all of us. So I think you better want to hear Andrea's voice. So this is our personal gift to this amazing evening.
Dedico questa immortale melodia a tutti i pazienti e a tutti coloro che di essi si prendono cura, una delle più belle melodie che abbia avuto la gioia di cantare.
Sovrana di grazie, Madre Pia, che accoglie ognor la fervente preghiera, non negare a questo straziato mio cor tregua al suo dolor. Sperduta l'alma mia si prostra a te, e pien di speme si prostra ai tuoi piedi. Ti invoca e attende che tu le dia la pace che solo tu puoi donar. Ave Maria.
The absolute culmination of the C dinner every year is the presentation of the Chairman's Award. You know, we put a lot of thought into who receives that award every year. And thinking about it, it's always a combination of four things. Somebody who has an appreciation and has had an imprint on history, culture, science, and innovation. And you know, this year's honorees, Dagmar and David Dolby, they are the perfect representation of everything the Chairman's Award is about.
You can't go to a movie today or see one on Netflix without seeing the logo of Dolby. But when Ray Dolby started, there wasn't anything like it.
My husband was a brilliant man who, as a scientist and engineer, he had spent his whole life exploring new ideas and loved solving problems.
But as an engineer, he was also very practical and thought about applying his ideas in the real world. He was very familiar with the challenges of noise in recording. Allowing artists to go further with their recordings, he created something that everybody could use and benefit from. He showed me what it meant to be all in, putting everything into his inventions. He was deeply curious, talented, and confident, but incredibly kind, generous, and a very humble person.
I became deeply involved and had to learn rapidly about Alzheimer's disease. When my husband was diagnosed in 2009 at age 76, it was inconceivable that his brain would give out.
Watching my hero become more dependent on others was really hard to see. I kept wishing that something could be done faster, and in the years that followed, I came to appreciate that this was a long game that would require all of us to come together to find a cure. My mother has chosen to focus on the standard of care for patients and their families affected by Alzheimer's. Dolby Family Ventures is the way I honor my father.
Dolby Family Ventures champions two core values that defined Ray Dolby as an entrepreneur to me. Invest in breakthrough innovation and back the most talented people in their field anywhere in the world.
Alzheimer's is a global problem with no shortcuts. We also know how important it is to support scientists with very different ways of thinking.
This is achieved by funding the need where the largest support gaps exist today. We look for novel, scientifically sound, and not generally embraced models.
There have been many more companies supported, many more companies started than would have ever been started without Dolby Family Ventures taking this concerted effort to support young companies in the Alzheimer's or neurodegenerative space.
In attending events where the Dolby family and Dolby Ventures has invited their various research colleagues to present the work, I'm struck by the diversity of approaches, both in the therapeutic area and also coming up with novel approaches for diagnostics.
8 years ago, Dave Dolby and I felt as if we were alone in the desert, investing in early stage startups in the Alzheimer's field. And this was an area at the time with a well-documented 99% failure rate. For us, finding the ADDF was reaching an oasis.
Sitting with Dagmar and sitting with David just made me think of the Lauder family. Here are these tremendous families who their business efforts have changed our lives, but their philanthropic efforts are even more bold, more innovative, more far-reaching.
We're honored to work together with the ADDF and have built a strong, active collaboration over the past 7 years. The proof of its success is that we are no longer in the desert. We're seeing the entire field of risk investing in Alzheimer's disease grow and are proud to be part of it.
There are a number of drugs in the clinic reading out over the next year. This is calling many pharmaceutical companies to consider their own drug pipeline strategy to compete in this very important disease area.
It is a very exciting time in neuroscience research and in Alzheimer's research in particular. I'm very hopeful that we will have a treatment for Alzheimer's disease in the coming years.
How lucky is the ADDF to have found the Dolby family? Dagmar and David Dolby, we thank you, we celebrate you. Congratulations.
Well, I just want to say to David and Dagmar that first, I just think you're such wonderful people, and it's just such a pleasure. It's just been such a pleasure for me to have the privilege of knowing you. You've really made a tremendous contribution to accelerating the development of drugs for Alzheimer's disease worldwide. And so we're very, very grateful to you for partnering with us and for having faith in us to be your partners over these many years.
Dagmar and David, on behalf of the ADDF, the Lauder family, and my fellow board members, we are thrilled to present you with the Chairman's Award. And we thank you for your leadership, your incredible partnership, and we look forward to many years of working together to conquer Alzheimer's.
The Lauder family and all of you at ADDF have been most generous in awarding us this honor. I humbly accept it on behalf of the thousands of researchers willing to live with a sense of uncertainty, to work in the darkness and to grope towards an answer. They are the heroes that all of us are deeply indebted to.
We feel so honored by this, and yet it's ADDF that's helped me learn so much to form a perspective on Alzheimer's. The Lauder family is truly inspirational for what they've created and for their tireless work to support scientists. Although my father wasn't a biologist, he had a deep appreciation for medical research and the biological sciences. If he were here today, he would be even more excited about supporting this type of research, and I feel very proud to be able to represent him in that way.
Thank you again, Dagmar and David, for your partnership and the incredible work you do in this field. Thank you again to all of those who made tonight's event possible. And a special thanks to all of the participants in tonight's program. And finally, we want to extend our gratitude to our executive, co-chair, vice chair, and benefactor level sponsors. Please stay safe. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in person next year.